Most people think artificial intelligence is about intelligence. Faster systems, better answers, smarter tools. That's the surface story. And it's the one you're supposed to focus on. But beneath that story is the real function of AI in the modern internet. And it has very little to do with helping you understand anything at all. AI exists to optimize behavior, not truth, not clarity, not meaning, behavior. And the most profitable behavior in the digital economy is not understanding. It's hesitation, confusion, lingering, unfinished thought. The longer your mind stays unresolved, the more valuable you become. This is the part that rarely gets said plainly. The internet did not become confusing by accident. It became confusing because confusion performs better than clarity, and AI made it measurable, repeatable, and scalable. Once platforms could train systems to detect what keeps you watching instead of what leaves you satisfied, the direction was locked in. From that point forward, anything that resolved too quickly became inefficient. Anything that explained itself too well became disposable. Confusion wasn't just tolerated, it was promoted. AI doesn't need to deceive you. It doesn't need to manipulate you emotionally. It doesn't even need to persuade you. It only needs to notice what makes you pause and then quietly deliver more of it. That's how algorithms work. They don't ask why something works. They observe that it does. And one of the strongest signals an algorithm can detect is hesitation. When you stop scrolling, when you rewatch, when you hover over comments trying to understand what you just saw. Those moments are data, and AI systems are extremely good at turning that data into strategy. Years ago, content competed on comprehension. A joke landed or it didn't. A point was made or it wasn't. A video either explained something or failed. The faster you understood, the faster you moved on. Today, that's the worst possible outcome for a platform. Understanding ends sessions. Confusion extends them. And AI systems are trained on massive behavioral datasets that prove this over and over again. They don't care that you're confused. They care that you stayed. If you've ever found yourself staring at content, thinking, I must be missing something, that moment is not a personal failure. It's the system doing exactly what it was trained to do. Humans are social learners. When we encounter something with massive engagement that doesn't immediately make sense, our instinct is not rejection. It's self-doubt. We assume meaning exists somewhere else. In a reference we missed. In a joke we don't get. In a context we're not part of. And instead of questioning the structure of the content, we question ourselves. That hesitation is gold. AI systems don't need to understand culture. They just need to understand reaction patterns. They don't evaluate meaning. They evaluate outcomes. Did you stop? Did you rewatch? Did you comment? Did you scroll slower afterward? Those signals are enough. And over time, the algorithm learns something very specific. Content that explains itself clearly produces shorter engagement. Content that withholds meaning produces longer sessions. Once that pattern is learned, the system optimizes toward it relentlessly. This is where confusion becomes infrastructure, not a glitch, not decay, not cultural collapse. Infrastructure. Built into recommendation engines, ranking systems, and feed prioritization. Content that feels unfinished, vague, or context-stripped is not being careless. It's being efficient. It keeps your brain active without resolving anything. It creates an open loop. And open loops are the core unit of attention economics. Belonging has replaced meaning online because belonging doesn't require explanation. Signals don't need definitions. If you recognize them, you're in. If you don't, Nothing is clarified for you. That silence creates pressure. Pressure to keep watching. Pressure to pretend you understand. Pressure to stay engaged long enough to figure it out. And AI systems amplify this dynamic because they can detect exactly which forms of ambiguity produce the longest engagement without triggering disengagement. Notice how rarely viral content explains itself anymore. How often it feels like it's referencing something that never quite arrives. How jokes lack punchlines. How phrases circulate without definitions. That's not laziness. That's optimization. Explanation is friction. Friction creates exits. AI systems are designed to reduce exits, not increase understanding. This is also why adults often feel this shift more clearly, not because they're out of touch, but because they remember when explanation was the norm, when media assumed responsibility for being understood. That memory is not nostalgia, it's contrast, and contrast reveals design. When you've seen both versions of the system, the change becomes obvious. Here's the uncomfortable reality most discussions avoid. AI did not create confusion. It made confusion profitable. Before algorithms, confusion was a risk. People clicked away. They lost interest. They disengaged. AI changed that by discovering that certain types of confusion increase engagement instead of decreasing it. Once that was measured, it was inevitable that the system would lean into it, not maliciously, automatically. Systems optimize for what they're rewarded for, and the reward structure is time, not truth. The algorithm does not care if you understand what you're watching. It does not care if you enjoy it. It does not care if it improves your life. It cares whether you stayed. And confusion is uniquely effective at keeping people present without satisfying them. Satisfaction ends loops. Confusion sustains them. This is why explanations are disappearing across platforms. This is why context is stripped away. This is why clarity feels rare and oddly calming when you encounter it. Clarity closes loops. It lets the mind rest. And a resting mind scrolls less. From a platform perspective, that's a problem. Once you understand this, the internet stops feeling random. It stops feeling like cultural decay or generational disconnect. It starts feeling like a system behaving exactly as designed. AI didn't break the internet. It perfected it for monetization. And here's the critical shift most people never make. The problem is not that you don't understand what you're seeing. The problem is that the system benefits when you don't. That realization alone removes a huge amount of quiet self-blame. You stop assuming you're behind. You stop assuming you're missing something obvious. You start asking better questions. Why does this lack context? Why does it refuse to explain itself? Why does it feel unresolved on purpose? Those questions restore agency. And that's why they're discouraged. A confused user stays longer. A clear-thinking user becomes selective. And selectivity is dangerous to systems that profit from volume. This channel exists to explain systems that benefit from not being explained, not emotionally, not reactively, structurally. Incentives, feedback loops, power dynamics. If that framing feels clarifying rather than overwhelming, that's intentional. Clarity is not favored online because it reduces engagement. But for people who value understanding over stimulation, it's essential. And this is where I'm going to be direct. If you're looking for surface-level takes, fast reactions, or trend commentary, this channel will frustrate you. But if you want to understand why AI-driven platforms behave the way they do, why confusion is rewarded, and why attention has replaced meaning, then subscribing isn't a suggestion, it's alignment. AI is not the end of this story, it's the template. Finance follows the same pattern. Markets follow the same pattern. Media follows the same pattern. Complexity replaces explanation. Algorithms replace accountability. And people are told to adapt instead of understand. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you need sources that respect your intelligence instead of exploiting your attention. You were never slow. You were never out of touch. You were placed inside a system that profits when you hesitate. Once you understand that, the confusion loses its power. And once you start choosing explanations over engagement, the noise gets quieter very quickly. That's what InfoTrend is for. And if this made something click that's been bothering you without words, you already know what to do.